From absolutely nowhere, he's created a scintillating attack against the black king.
This is such an effortlessly beautiful game that you will learn so much from. Now, Magnus Carlsen, world champion at the time, 2019, plays d4 on move 1. This is the World Blitz Championship, and his opponent is a former world champion, Vladimir Kramnik, a man in the news lately. Knight f6 from him. What a battle this is. Start steady with a London system. It's like Marmite, you either love it or hate it, right? And after c5, e3, things carry on in a steady fashion. But watch how Magnus soon goes to work. Really incredible. Knight b to d2 played. Kramnik takes on d4. Pawn recaptures here and queen b6. Classic developing move, hitting 2 pawns there. Now, because Magnus develops the knights early into the game, he never achieved c3, the pawn triangle, so he can't now go rook b1. Therefore, knight b3 necessary to cover here and the centre. Bishop f5 from Kramnik, very natural, and now this is crazy. How does Magnus Carlsen, world champion at the time, not just play pawn c3? Instead, he goes bishop e2. And guess what? It's a straight blunder, which Kramnik also misses. This is 2 world champions. Knight b4 was the best move here, hitting the pawn simply, and what do? Completely busted. If c3, you hop anyway with check. If rook c1, you take here, hit the rook, it's only got to come back. You know what to do. Castles, whoops, castles here, still take a pawn. Just horrible. Black winning the game, but it was missed. e6. Magnus breathes a huge sigh of relief, fogs up Kramnik's glasses. He gives him a wipe, and after castles, then goes bishop e7. And now what does Magnus do? Well, he's back in the zone, pushing on with a4. I've just realised the clock times are wrong on the left. Apologies, no clue what's going on there. They get 3 minutes each, plus 2 seconds per move. Now, a5 playable here, but you severely weaken the b5 square. So instead we see a6, very natural, a5, queen d8, knight e5, occupying the outpost, and rook c8 adds some protection to the knight on c6. Now pawn to c3, very natural structure. Castles played, rook e1 hits the half open file. Kramnik hops with the knight into the centre of the board, and bishop d3 hits this more pertinent diagonal, also opens the eyes of the rook. Very natural stuff, and now Kramnik initiates some play in the centre. Capturing with the pawn, possible, different game. Magnus goes with the bishop, and now how about this for a pair of grandmasterly moves? Kramnik just goes bishop to g6, tucks it back, tidy, supported by 2 pawns. What does Magnus do? Bishop f4. What's that one all about? Well, you could argue it's a micro improvement of that piece, right? Keeps an eye on bishop g5 maybe, plus you open the eyes of the rook. Maybe you anticipate a quick f6, e5 later, but none of that transpires because here Magnus just plays classic positional chess. Because after Kramnik goes knight d6, offering this exchange here, looking for knight c4 maybe one day, Magnus now initiates some exchanges with bishop takes on g6, h recaptures, fine, and then this one, bishop takes knight. There's something strange about that. You give your opponent this great bishop, keeping tabs on the knight, which is stuck on b3. What has Magnus got in mind? But it's like he's just mapped out this entire attack on the black king. Sit back, watch a master at work. Because after g3, Kramnik initiates play on the queen side, very natural. Magnus takes en passant, of course shouts it out loud in his best French accent. Try it at your next over the board tournament. Very important to practice whenever you can. And after rook e2, covering that b2 pawn, anticipating rook b8, well, Magnus now goes on an epic journey with this knight. Starting with knight c1, sometimes you have to backpedal, go home to mum and dad just to re-enter the game in the right square. We get a5 from Kramnik, a classic minority pawn attack over here. White's got the majority of the pawns, hence the minority attack name. Knight d3 comes. Now queen b5, potentially supporting a4 in future. Rook a8 to come, and h4 from Magnus. Fine, Kramnik, you play there, I'm playing over here. I want to strip your king bare. Now Kramnik probably should go rook a8. Just carry on ploughing down the board with his a-pawn. But he goes rook f to c8, giving Magnus some time. He starts with rook d2, opening up the queen. You know, these pieces just reaching amazing squares. I mean, okay, it doesn't look that amazing, but watch how it uncoils. Rook a8 now played, and h5. This is why Magnus opened the eyes of the queen. Kramnik takes that pawn. Queen recaptures, and there's a threat here of king g2, swing the rook to h1, checkmate black. What a huge attack. So g6 played. It is a good move, buys some time. The queen comes onto the dark squares. a4, Kramnik cracks on. King g2, the cannon's on the way, so bishop f8 forced. Get rid of that queen. Now we see bishop g7, and Magnus finally uses this knight to intensify the pressure. It hits the promised land, threatening to now crash through on f7 in combination with the queen. They're such a deadly attacking force. And if you take, well, look at the dark squares here. Horrendously weak. The rook is swinging and the black pieces are offside, unable to defend. So instead, we don't see bishop takes on e5. Kramnik retreats with the queen, covering f7, and now rook d3. More micro improvement, preparing to swing with the rook. So f6 played from Kramnik, kicking the knight away to g4 here, but now there's pressure on the f6 pawn. It's tender. It's around this moment that Sagar is praising Magnus's ability.
From absolutely nowhere, he's created a scintillating attack against the black king
to just turn up the heat and attack his opponent. So queen f8 now played, covering the pawn. Queen e7, probably more prudent, because after rook f3, intensifying the pressure here, Kramnik now ignores it and goes pawn to a3, desperate to drum up counterplay. But Magnus first to the punch. He first takes that pawn, and now we see f5. And Magnus finds this great move in response. You know, most of us are moving this knight, right, into e5 or something, and it is playable. But if the queen was on e7 right now, then the move that Magnus plays wouldn't be possible, which is the excellent queen to g5. This queen would be covering that square, and there wouldn't be a pin on the black queen. This one now under fire, so king f7, what an ugly move. All of this pawn structure now hugely under fire, and after rook h1, Magnus is about to crash through to the black monarch. We get rook takes on a3, going for the counterplay. The engine wanted king e8 as a top move, but now rook h7, the attack about to reach its crescendo. We get rook c takes on c3, and now Magnus jumps with the knight to h6. You could also come to e5 with check. This one good enough, the king can't come here or here, or to e7, so it retreats back here, and now Magnus breaks through finally. Checks the king. It has to go. No queen f7, of course. The knight covers the square, and here Kramnik simply resigns. These pieces could come off the board, and then white wins an entire rook. Plus this rank is weak. The king is not for this world. What a game from Magnus. Turning up the heat, positional mastery, giving that bishop for knight on d6, and generating that huge attack. If you enjoyed, smash subscribe, never miss a video, come in soon, and for another epic game of chess, check out the video on screen. Thanks a lot for watching, and see you soon.